and more people to become more spiritually aware of things, such as their own past lives.
Sure. How important do you think it is for, humans or people to know, not only in a physical or a material sense, where they're coming from, but also on a spiritual level? Do you think that, and if we were to have that knowledge, do you think that would have any effects on the lives that we do live today?
Well, yes, this is one of the important reasons why I wrote this book. Because, the goals that we set for ourselves individually and collectively are to a large extent determined by the answers we give to the fundamental questions, who am I and where did I come from?
Mm.
So, for example, if I think I'm an American man, well, that's how I behave. We set our goals based on our sense of identity, based on the answers to these questions. Who am I and where did I come from? So for the past century or so, through the monopoly they have in the education system in most countries, the Darwinists have had the power to dictate to everyone the answers to these fundamental questions. And the answers they've been giving are very materialistic. They tell us, you're just a combination of chemicals, you're just an evolved ape, you're another kind of animal. So I think it's no surprise that our whole worldwide human civilization has become very materialistic in its goals and projects and things like that. So much so that most people in the world today believe that the primary purpose of human existence is simply to produce and consume more and more material things. And as a result of that, we're seeing a lot of environmental destruction.
Mm-hmm.
We're also seeing a lot of competition among nations for scarce material resources like oil, which is one of the driving causes, I believe, of war and conflict in the world today.
Yeah.
We're also seeing many class struggles about the control of wealth and material resources. So what I'm proposing is, if we want to change all this, we have to go back to the root. We have to go right back to the answers to these fundamental questions. Who am I and where did I come from?
Yeah.
And I think if we had a different set of answers to these fundamental questions, we would have a different world in which we'd be living in. For example, what if in all our schools and scientific institutions, our educators and scientists were telling us, well, actually, we are beings of pure consciousness. We are meant to be developing the resource of consciousness, not simply exploiting the resources of matter. I think it would be a different world. I think we would recognize each individual as having the same spiritual spark within that's within ourselves. I think this would take us beyond the divisions of racism and nationalism and religious sectarianism. Because if we're developing the resource of consciousness, this will reduce the level of material greed. It will be an entirely different mindset. And I think this depends on our learning to access these levels of consciousness, which can be done through different techniques of meditation and yoga and contemplation that are there in practically every great wisdom tradition of the world. I don't think anyone has an exclusive claim to truth. This is one of the other big problems that I see in the world today. Exclusive claims to truth. It's like a geologist could tell us how to extract the pure element gold from its ore where it's mixed with other less valuable elements. Now, once you've extracted the gold, you could form it into coins, and you could stamp the coins with the symbols of different nations. But if it's actually gold, who cares what symbol you've stamped on it? It will be accepted as something valuable everywhere because gold is valuable. So similarly, if by these spiritual technologies of contemplation and meditation and yoga, you're able to extract the element of pure consciousness from its hovering energies where it's been covered by different layers of mind and matter. Once you've done that, I think it doesn't matter, what you call the process, Hinduism or Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever. It doesn't make any difference what you call it. If you've got the result, it will be understood and appreciated. And once we have that idea that the essence of a human being is the spiritual essence, the essence of pure consciousness, this will lead to a different set of goals that's in society, individually and collectively. We will be able to choose another path than the one we're on now, which is leading to environmental destruction, psychological destruction, conflict, an unending series of conflicts.
Yes.
I think it all goes back to the very root question. Who are we? Where did we come from?
That's right, and it feels like the theory of evolution has developed, has been developed for our time or the current period in a way that we're in now. In a way that the main idea, I guess, is that life is an accident, and the question is how a young mind or a young child develops their view of the world around a theory as such when it's being taught to these kids in school in that sense. And as far as I know, it's always difficult to generalize, and I guess in different countries there are different ways that this is being taught, but there isn't even some kind of space, it feels like, for the suggestion that okay, this is a theory, but there are other ones out there we don't know. It feels like this theory of evolution has been put there to kind of put out the fire, as it were, of interest in people's minds. It's like, here is an answer, go with that, go to work and build more Hypnocube televisions or whatever to keep on this workflow.
You're absolutely right about that, Henrik. I think it's that theory. What it does is it keeps people in a state of mind where they will simply think their purpose in life. I mean, if they're more intelligent, they'll be involved in the production of the material things, working in the factories, designing all the new products. And if they're less intelligent, they'll just be a consumer of them.
Yeah.
But either way, this process of material production and consumption generates huge amounts of wealth. And where does it go? Well, it goes into the pockets of scientists who are inventing the weapons, inventing the pharmaceuticals, inventing the consumer products.
Sure.
If you go to any university today, you'll see that there's very little emphasis on just knowledge and teaching students. Most universities, they are research consortiums where you have billions of dollars being invested by governments, universities, and scientific institutions and corporations to produce labs where you get the new weapons, the new consumer products, the new pharmaceuticals. And so the universities and the scientists, they benefit from this financially. Of course, the corporations that sell the weapons, sell the pharmaceuticals, sell the consumer products, they also benefit financially from this.
Yeah.
The governments that tax all this economic activity, they benefit from this. The militaries, they benefit from it, getting new weapons. So there's a lot of investment in keeping people focused on this process of material production and consumption, which is generating so much wealth. And if people even get the least bit disturbed by this and withdraw from it, then it sends shock waves throughout the economic and political establishment that people aren't consuming enough. They're not. The economy is going down. They try to find every way possible to keep people involved in this ever-increasing cycle of material production and consumption, which, as I said, is destroying our planet environmentally and in terms of competition for the resources and the markets and things like that.
Yeah.
But where does it all start with? I think it goes right back to this fundamental conception of the self. If we had the idea, no, we're all spiritual beings. We're all here on the same planet. and we're all equal on the spiritual level, and we all have the right to live as simply and naturally as possible, and put most of our human energy into developing the resource of consciousness or spirit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when we think about it, we're in a sense in a lot of trouble here, because the culture as it is now is also in a way brainwashing, the new people that are coming into it. It has almost become like a self-sustaining organism, or almost as a virus in a sense, because what I'm scared of a little bit, I guess, is people's interests in these kinds of areas that we're talking about now, and to actually awaken enough to even begin to ask those kinds of questions. But in a sense, it feels like the culture is taking that even that spiritual, the questioning and so forth, even that away from young people today. So that's kind of the problem I see today. Would you agree on that?
Well, yes, and I discussed this with education officials. I was talking with some education officials in a country in Europe, and I was suggesting to them, why not allow some alternative explanations of human origins and psychology into the education system? And they said it would confuse the children. And I said, what do you mean confuse the children? The children are confronted with choice every day. They have 500 TV channels to choose from. They have dozens of shoes to choose from. They have 50 flavors of ice cream to choose from. The children are going to be able to handle alternatives and choice.
Yeah.
So I think the first step in turning this around is that people have to start asking their government representatives, education departments, to start allowing some alternatives into the education system on this question of human origins. I think that would be a big step in changing the current situation, which you've so accurately described.
It feels like the question of creationism versus evolution is more more wilder, and I can find the right word here, but more ongoing over in the United States than it is here. Do you think that it's a danger that this is kind of where it all ends up? It becomes like a dialectic. It is those two sides that are fighting, and not a third or a fourth one is allowed to kind of get into that fight, as it were?
Yeah, well, I think one problem is that people want very simple answers. And, some people, they want a very simple evolution account. The chemicals came together, the apes came, the human beings came, a very simple materialistic Darwinian account. And then some people want a very simple creation account, that, okay, God created everything out of nothing, just like that. And then you also have people who want a very simple extraterrestrial account. That the ETs came and did some genetic manipulations and turned the ape men into the human beings and things like that. I think the real situation is actually a little more complex. I think elements of all three things are involved. I think there is a process of evolution that goes on, but I call it devolution. It's not the kind that the Darwinists talk about. I think there is a kind of creation that goes on. I think there is some intelligent, conscious being that has something to do with the order and structure that we see in the forms of life in the universe. And I think there also is an extraterrestrial element to it. I don't think we're the only intelligent beings in the universe. I think the real truth may be a more complex tapestry. And I think that the attempts to oversimplify things by either just insisting on this simple Darwin account or a simple creation account is preventing us from appreciating the real complexity that's there. So I think but I think there's a lot of people that understand this. There's many people, including some scientists, who understand that there's more to it